NEPM's podcasts are funded by Armbrook Village Senior Living in Westfield, offering assisted living and compass memory support with evidence-based treatment for those with memory loss. More at armbrookvillage.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. We love to talk to farmers here in the 413, but today we'll talk to a cloud farmer.
That is not an accurate description of what happens at Antenna Cloud Farm, but we will welcome back to the studio Michi Wiancko, director and curator of Antenna Cloud Farm, a music festival, arts retreat, and community organization based in Gill. She's also a member of the Yo-Yo Ma-founded, Rhiannon Giddens-directed Silk Road Ensemble.
We'll hear what Antenna Cloud has in store for the summer starting this weekend, and we may even be able to coax Michi into playing some music for us.
And I'll fangirl about seeing them at Big Ears this past
spring.
I
did hear her playing the violin in the green room, so that's a good sign.
I know. Speaking of music, we are betwixt two big 413 music festivals with solid sound on the horizon for this weekend, and Green River just barely in the rearview mirror.
Backstage at Green River, Khalees caught up with Mon Rovia, the Afro-Appalachian folk artist rescued from the Civil War in Liberia, who is now here to instill peace with his music.
But first,
time for Local Hero Spotlight with Phil Corman from CISA, the Local Hero folks, and the vice chair of CISA's board, who's also behind Mass in Motion, the coordinator for Springfield's Department of Health and Human Services, Benjamin Bland. Born and raised in Springfield, Benjamin Bland.
Yes, correct. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for coming. Tell us about what Mass in Motion is.
Sure. So Mass in Motion is a statewide public health grant program funded by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. So there are 10 of us all around the state. There's, of course, Mass in Motion Springfield, which I manage for the city. There's Mass in Motion Holyoke, Mass in Motion Franklin County, Mass in Motion Hampshire County. So there's a network of 10 of us all around the state, and it's really broadly focused around healthy eating and active living. So we do a lot of food systems work, small, medium, and large grocers, community gardens, healthy retail, food pantry work, of course, our emergency food distribution system. And then the other bucket is around physical activity, so walking, biking, pedestrian safety.
biking safety.
Yep, bike safety, wheelchair access, right? ADA compliance, curb cuts, crosswalks, all of that. The pedestrian buzzers, so when it makes that sound, when you push the button to cross the street and it makes that sound.
Wait.
Don't tell me.
That is for folks who are visually impaired so that they can hear when it is safe to cross. So just thinking about things like that.
So is your organization, it's part of the state government, or is it extra-governmental?
I would say a mix of both.
Uh-huh.
So we're all seated sort of differently. So the Mass Department of Public Health is the funder, and they give the funding to the different municipalities where the grant lives. So I'm seated in the Department of Health and Human Services, so it's governmental. But in past cohorts, like there have been Mass in Motion grantees that have lived in like a YMCA, for example. Sometimes a regional planning agency will have one. So for a little while, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, which is the regional planning agency for all of Western Mass, had a Mass in Motion grant. So most of us are governmental, but it can be a mixture.
Are you giving the grants or creating the programming or both?
Creating the programming.
Okay.
So when you're talking about things like curb cuts for ADA or bike lanes or some of the motion-activated things, are you going to the city of Springfield and saying, here are our priorities, implement them now? Or are you having to actually push the city to do what you, for Mass in Motion, is thinking is right?
So I'm finding sort of places within city processes to integrate some of that feedback and integrate some of the things that we want. So the Built Environment Subcommittee consists of, it's a city sort of ordained group, but it has everybody that's physically touching the built environment, right? So DPW, planning, the Planning Commission, myself for the Health Department. Just a mix. Oh, the Parks Department also sits on that. And so finding spaces like that to lift up things like complete streets, right, or walking or biking or anything to troubleshoot those issues. So finding places sort of within existing city processes to lift up some of those concerns.
Benjamin has been working for the city of Springfield for 10, 12 years, and Benjamin applies for this grant on behalf of the City Department of Health to get to access the state grant. And so since you're applying, sometimes the programming changes a little bit depending on the state priorities. But Benjamin has very deep experience trying to make local food accessible to all people of the residents of Springfield.
And we hear you work hand in hand with our buddy Liz O'Gilvy from the Springfield Food Policy Council.
I do. She's known me. So I started at the health department in 2014, and she's known me since then. So long relationship there. And I also sit on the Springfield Food Policy Council. She chairs the Springfield Food Policy Council for the city. I sit on the advisory committee. So we're in regular contact, coming up with ideas and projects and what can we do. And
you're also the vice chair of CISA, Community Involved in Sustaining Agriculture.
Yes, that's newer, but
but cool. But it's still important, and creating access to food is part of CISA's mission as well as the Springfield Food Policy Council.
Absolutely, and it brings, I think for me, being on the CISA board really brought me that sort of regional perspective. Connecting in a deeper way with CISA really broadened me out to think more regionally, which was really cool for me.
How do you feel those three hats differ from each other in the way that you have to approach them?
That's a good question. In so many ways, they feed into each other because the issues are also related, right? Like just food access and food insecurity in general, thinking about food preventable chronic disease, right? Springfield is really disproportionately impacted by all of those things. In so many ways, they sort of inform and feed into each other. And then I sort of have to be aware which hat I'm wearing when I go into a space. Like today, I'm wearing Mass in Motion hat and a little bit CISA hat.
They look great on you, by the way.
Thank you. So it's being aware, right, of like how I'm entering spaces. I will say you mentioned at the top. I was born and raised in Springfield. My mother had me when she was 16 years old. So I come to food work first as someone who was born and raised in Springfield, who watched my mother survive on SNAP and WIC and all of those programs. Like that was my first understanding of health disparities and food insecurity and all this nice language around public health before I had any of the language. I watched my mother survive. So just to ground us with that, I think is important.
So then what are you bringing to the work that you're doing that excites you about access to food and trying to alleviate issues of hunger and food access in the city that you grew up in?
Yeah, we're doing all kinds of exciting stuff. I mentioned Liz and I are always coming up with new ideas. So we're very excited about always trying to start, a new farmers market in different areas of the city. We are looking at doing community food assessment for the city of Springfield, which is a really involved process and going to take a really long time, but they're cool once you get to the other side of it. Of course, I mentioned SNAP and HIP and WIC, particularly around HIP.
The Healthy Incentives Program, state-run program that helps reimburse people who are on SNAP to buy fresh, healthy vegetables at farmers markets and certain other markets as well.
Yes, thank you. So always doing, consistently outreach around HIP. Liz has done training for service providers. So folks who are touching folks that may have SNAP cards or may be low income or may qualify, so that the service providers know, tell your clients about this program and make sure they're using it. We're really trying to get those usage rates up, particularly in Springfield.
The challenge is that oftentimes to create something new against the system that allows people to be hungry oftentimes means that the money needs to be there for 10 to 20 years, and that often is not true. And I'm wondering if there's an example or two or something of a good idea that you or Liz or together you've put into action that only stopped going not because it failed, but because the resources stopped being available.
Well, I have one example actually where that didn't happen.
Okay, that's even better.
And it grew legs and it ran away on its own.
We always hear about the disparities of things that are going not necessarily wrong, but like the ways in which Springfield is lacking. But like, what are some of the ways that Springfield is actually doing well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give this example. There was a program called Open Gyms in partnership with Springfield Public Schools and the Parks Department. And as far back as 2015, 2016, it was basically a small pilot program to keep the school gyms open during the winter months when it was too cold for the kids to be outside, so they still had somewhere to go be physically active. That was just funded by, I believe it was like $10,000, a mini grant from Health New England. So I would apply for the mini grant, work with the school department and the parks department. The youth would sign up for the program. We'd have 2, 3, 4 sites on a given year. And it just grew and grew and grew and grew. And, we had significantly, I don't remember the numbers, but we had significantly more youth showing up to use the gyms than were actually signing up on the permission slip. So it swelled. And year after year, what happened was that the parents and families started expecting, when winter came, they started to expect like, oh, hey, open gyms, right? Like I'm going to drop my kid off, right? Mm-hmm. It just became sort of part of the fabric. And now, actually, the school department and the parks department, like, it just runs on its own.
Did it get built into the city budget?
It did.
Uh-huh.
Yep, it did. The
So
city picked up that money that we used to apply for from Health New England. So it's part of the city budget. It runs every year. The school department and the parks department runs it by themselves. And I have nothing to do with it anymore.
Except for having created it and starting it, and that's important. I mean,
Right.
it's how HIP, we've already mentioned before, kind of was a pilot project, became so successful that they've been consistently trying to figure out how to work it into the budget to make it a more permanent part of the way the people get access to healthy food.
Right. And part of the thing with HIP being a pilot program, Springfield was one of the pilot sites. So that's also one of the pain points around, usage being low and really trying to spread that awareness is, we helped create it. We were one of the pilot sites. Liz and I, it's dear to our hearts in Springfield to get that usage up.
We're speaking with Benjamin Bland, who's the Mass in Motion Program Coordinator for Springfield's Department of Health and Human Services and the Vice Chair of CISA's board.
Has the food justice and restoration aspect of your job been harder to get grants, funding, and awareness for than the physical activity portion of your job?
I think not necessarily harder to get sort of funding and awareness for. It's an area where there's a lot of common ground. Everybody has to eat. I think it takes a longer time to see movement in food work. I think movement in sort of built environment and physical activity work is easy. It's faster to see the progress, right? You can see like when Downtown Refresh was happening in Springfield, and we had some complete street stallers, and all the crosswalks went in, and the bike boxes, those green boxes for the bikes to stop at the stoplights. So you see it more immediately. You can see like if we get a curb cut put in, you see it. So not necessarily harder, but food work takes a longer time to really feel that shift.
And maybe along those lines, maybe you could share some of your work with bodegas and sort of what you learned from that, but also the remaining challenges of that work.
Yeah, which we're still sort of chewing on in new ways.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I actually sort of cut my teeth, quote unquote, in public health work doing site visits at corner stores and mom and pop shops and bodegas around that 2014 to 2016 period. Literally just like going in, shaking hands, maybe, doing like a healthy shelf programming to put some onions and potatoes and bananas on a shelf. That grew over time. We had a team of 6 interns go into 71 corner stores across the city, and they actually used 3 tools. So they had the fresh tool, which really measures, it gives you like a measuring rubric on paper to measure like how many varieties of whole grain bread, how many different varieties of low-fat yogurt, right? Like a measuring tool for the health of the products. And then they did customer intercept surveys. So they physically stopped people on their way in and out of the stores. They got 125 of those across all the zip codes we targeted to just ask, what did you buy today? How often do you shop here? Did you drive here? Did you bike here? What's the story? And then we got 8 owners actually did the owner interview tool and expressed interest in the program. So that was a huge project, and it took me forever to write it, and it was insane. But it's really cool. It's really amazing. We made maps. The Pioneer Valley Planning Commission made a mapping tool for all of the Springfield Fresh data, and we're still, Liz and I and all of our food justice folks here in Springfield are still chewing on, next steps for that in terms of healthy retail work and how to really move the needle with bodegas and corner stores and mom and pop. A lot of work there.
But it's great that there's already that you've created the beginnings of this map, and that I think that's going to have a huge impact, especially in certain neighborhoods in Springfield. This is a great way to get it right where the stores already exist, this fresh, healthy food.
Right, and where people are already going.
Yeah.
Right? They're already walking there.
They're familiar with it, yeah.
Right. If you watch, the youth when they get off the bus, they're hitting the store on the way to and from.
Right.
With iced teas that are as big as their head. So we'd like to have other options other than the iced tea.
Since we're here with Phil from CISA, you're kind of like, I guess, his boss, right? If you're the vice chair of the board. Tell us something that you enjoy apart from getting to learn more about areas apart from Springfield, about working with CISA and maybe some of the farmers that you've been able to connect through their organization.
Just a lot of the connections that I've made through sort of being integrated with CISA have been really amazing. Yeah, the farmers, I had never been in a room with that many farmers before, and just hearing how the conversation is so different. It's funny, the conversation is so different, but the issues are so similar.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's been interesting.
We often spend some time at every board meeting going around, and each farmer says, how is the season going? Mm-hmm. And since we have a mushroom farmer, we have a chicken, poultry, farmer, we have a turkey farmer, we have produce, and all that, and they're scattered throughout the valley. We kind of do get a snapshot. And then, of course, we'll have someone who's running a supermarket in Chicopee who is turning a greenhouse on top of a rooftop, and she jumps in, So it's like, it's a kind of sweet little way to have a good sense of what's going on, for sure.
And you hit on all the different, as you're listening to the farmers and, right, the store owner in Chicopee, you hit on all the different areas, right? For one, it might be labor. For another, it might be policy, right? Like, I'm trying to build a greenhouse on top of my roof, and this is not allowed for this reason because we can't get the architecture permit for this thing, right? So you're hearing all of that, which is really interesting.
What that you've learned from those sessions at CISA are you able to now bring into the Mass in Motion program?
I think it just informs sort of my conversation better in a, more richly in a deeper way. If I know specifically sort of what's going on and what the issues are, I can pitch better and more sharply.
Is there a program that is coming that you're really excited about?
Yeah, well, one of the things, this was already in existence, but we sort of retool it every year. We have the Mass in Motion community group. So that really is a resident-led, resident-driven group. So that it's once a month, and it's residents of Springfield coming together. I facilitate, but I really am intentional about, letting the group sort of make decisions about what projects and what events happen out of that group. So that's once a month, and it's with a lot of times when people say, resident group or community group, it's like them and like two people that they work with. So this is not that. This is actually, we're majority people of color, the community group. We get really good representation from seniors, many of whom are low income or on fixed incomes, right? So when cost of living goes up, their income does not. We sort of revamp it every year and do recruitment and kind of shift things a little bit, but that'll be coming online for the new year. When I say year, people think calendar year. I think in fiscal year. Mm-hmm. So end of June is end of the fiscal year. So that's why I'm saying new year, because July will be a quote-unquote new year for us, just so folks don't get confused. But that community group is always looking for, new members, Springfield residents that want to dig in around all of this stuff. Food systems and food justice, walking, biking, safe parks, all of it.
Benjamin Bland is the Mass in Motion Program Coordinator for Springfield's Department of Health and Human Services and the Vice Chair of CISA's board. Been speaking with Benjamin, along with Phil Corman from CISA, who are the local hero folks. You can find out more about the work that they do at buylocalfood.org. Later in the show, we'll hear about the 2024 season of The Tiniest Antithesis to Tanglewood on a Hill in Gill when we talk with Michi Wiancko from Antenna Cloud Farm.
But up next, I'll take you back in time and backstage to the Green River Festival where I talked with ukulele peacemaker Mon Rovia.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, homegrown in Hatfield, Massachusetts, and providing energy savings for their customers for over 10 years. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
So a little bit about me. My name is Mon Rovia. I was born in Liberia, West Africa. I was rescued from there during the First Civil War. And coming to America, I kind of forgot a lot about the journey. I tried to push things way deep down in memory, trauma, loss, identity, as you try to assimilate into a new life. But music always called me back to history and back the importance of knowing and understanding, I think, the roots of pain and loss. And so the musical journey for me has been one of healing, and it's been amazing to see how it's, grown into a great community of beautiful people, surely. So I hope, as you listen to these songs, you find yourself in these stories, emotions. It's a connection of humanity. We all know pain, loss, success, joy, triumph. And so I hope you can see yourself in these things and just know how important it is that you're here. You're so loved. You're so, we all need each other.
And you thought that you didn't deserve it. Well, you're wrong.
I am at the Green River Festival with Mon Rovia, who just played an absolutely fantastic set. Thank you so much. You play ukulele. How did you come to that particular instrument?
My parents got it for me like 1 year. I played guitar at the time, So it kind of just it was serendipitous that it fell to me. So yeah, kind of just picked it up and played.
Do you feel more comfortable on ukulele than guitar?
Oh, I mean, I don't even play guitar anymore now. Yeah, I just play the ukulele, so I don't really know chords and things. I just hear good sounds and play them. So
Those things are different now.
When I came over from Liberia with my adopted family, we spent some time in Montana. Beautiful place, truly amazing. One of the only black people there, but still an amazing place. And the closest town to us was one called Olney. We were outside of that, close to British Columbia. I remember when we lived out there, my dad decided to take me on a trip home, back to Liberia. This is during the second civil war of the country, and you don't know, Liberia had 10 years. Over a quarter of the population, died during this war. It was a really crazy experience. And going back during the second civil war, we landed in Mon Rovia, which is the capital city of Liberia. The rebel soldiers had come in the town right after and burned the airport down, so our stay was extended. My dad decided to go on his own hero's journey down to Buchanan, which is down the coast of Liberia. And so I was left in the city. The UN was there, and some other ECOMOG, African peacekeeping forces, were also in Mon Rovia. One thing that really sticks out to me about this trip, and there are many things that happened on my journey back, and I was crossing the street one day, and the child soldiers were coming through the city, and they sit in the back of these pickup trucks with their AKs and RPGs. They hopped out of their truck when they saw me and surrounded me in this area. I remember, they're making fun of me and they're laughing at me. And one of the boys comes up to me and he puts the AK right to my head and he holds it there for some time. And I remember thinking, for the first time, that how I wanted to be alive. It's crazy that you can go through life not really noticing every breath and everything you see until it comes. And so I remember being like, I really hope to go home and to continue to have opportunity to do good things, right? And luckily they put the gun off my head, pushed me back around and got in the truck and they drove off. I came home from this experience and I couldn't sleep for some time, watched TV late into the night, and watching the world kind of not be there for you. And if you've experienced that, perhaps some of you have, I hope you know community is the best way out.
Big love ahead, mountaintops, you're scared.
You mentioned in your set about going back to Liberia as a child during times of massive conflict. Have you been back as an adult? And has it changed anything about your general feelings or your songwriting?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the journey and mission will end in Liberia. It will be that return, especially as we look forward to more music and things. The catharsis for me, at least on my journey, will be, I think, finalized once I go back as an adult to the land and heal with the family that I have left there and the people, and hopefully bring just some hope any way I can. So that's definitely a part of the journey going back.
I'm here with Mon Rovia at the Green River Festival. You're currently touring with Gregory Alan Eiskopf, but how did your music career start?
Yeah, great question. Definitely touring with Gregory. He's the godfather, as we know, so love him so much. But yeah, I mean, music for me was really always in the background, and I, kind of ran away from it for a long time because I'm really shy. I'm a very quiet person. So I never thought I'd be playing in front of crowds like that and things like that. So truly had to want to step into it and want to learn my history, my identity, and hopefully help other people that have come from different things. Not it always has to be my story, but I hope I help the kids that have experienced what I went through. But also, people who are dealing with addiction or just or depression or grieving in different ways. I hope to be a solvent to that as I, try to heal myself as well. So it's better to heal together. So that's the whole purpose.
Agreed. I was lucky enough to intro you, and in my intro I mentioned that there's a lot of beauty and a lot of hope in your songs, but what's a song of yours that you think is the least typical for you?
Least typical? That's crazy. I mean, as in a feeling, or do you mean a song that I put out already?
I mean both, like as a feeling, or as just in practice, something that you wrote and you were like, wow, that seems not like a thing that I would have done, but here is this song.
Yeah, here's the song. Man, I think I really do stick. Oh, well, actually, never mind. Some of my earlier work is more hip hop driven. If you didn't know this.
Really?
Yeah. So like Dark Continents album that I did in 2021 before I really stepped into this is more hip hoppy kind of rhythmically in that way than folk. It's not folk at all, or even any of that genre. So that was probably something different that I was like, oh damn, that's cool, but not what I'm doing now.
I think you guys got in like this morning, so you haven't really had a chance to like go around Western Mass, but like being on tour, what has been one of your favorite things to see outside of the venue or to find outside of the venue?
Really just spaces of nature. One thing I love is being able to enter into those gardens, and in those safe spaces. Nature is so safe, and it gives you a feeling of wholeness. So one thing I always try to do with me and Eric, we love to go and hike and write songs and play songs in the woods, and just a place of beauty, get inspired. A lot of my songs are inspired by nature, for sure.
Right on. What's been the biggest surprise about being on a bigger tour like this?
I mean, honestly, the amount of people. I've never played for crowds this big, especially with Gregory. I mean, he's doing 4,000 cap rooms, 3,000 cap rooms every night. I had my own tour in June, and that was like 250 to 300 people. And then I jumped to Gregory's, and it's rooms of 3,000. So that's been the crazy experience to see that many people that come out for him, come out for his music is wild. So maybe one day we'll get there, but
I think you will. I mean, like, one of the cool things beyond, like, so Gregory was backstage for part of your show, or at least like your sound check, and the amount of people who are playing this festival who came back to see you play, I think is a really cool thing. It's an interesting thing to be the artist that the other artists are looking at and listening to. Do you
yeah, that's great insight.
Does that affect any of the shyness that you feel about like your work or being out on tour?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, when I'm up there, I really it's me and the fans, and trying to help them go back to some things that they need to. So I don't say I notice too many people. Like, I don't really notice. Like, I smiled at one part up there because I turned and there was my good buddy Josiah and the Bonvilles, just like looking and waving at me. So it does bring me a lot of joy to have them support me, for sure. But I don't know. I think it's best the way I dealt with just my shyness and being in front of people is really trying to focus on the reason these people are here to listen to the music. Like, I don't know all their stories, but clearly there's something about the songs and the atmosphere that helps them navigate that, and that's a really beautiful thing. So I try to stay locked in with that.
What about community helps you in your songwriting the most?
I think for me, it's being able to learn from their stories as they share and really listening. And so taking some of the things I hear in conversation, like my friend the other day, who's Mickey Brown, he does all my artwork, he's an amazing dude. He said something of, don't waste your adversity. That's what it was. And a lot of time we waste it, sitting in there like, I can't get out of this, I'm out, and you don't learn anything from it. It's so important to be present in all situations. And so like that was just something, because he's in my community, he's someone that I'm gleaning from. And so they all help with my songs, and like I get ideas from hearing their journey of life. And then I also know I can go to them about things that I'm with, and they're there. So community is always important, and we're in a very isolated society. Everyone's kind of just caring about themselves, but the way forward is really together. So I think they have to eventually face it, and they eventually have to go through and not be afraid to see the past for what it was, instead of burying it under this lip gloss society that we live in. So anyway, you can go into it forever.
No, that's facts. That's truth. Have you lived all over the country, or was it just Montana and Tennessee?
I lived in Montana, Florida, Tennessee, and California.
Which of those places you think has the most impact on your music and the sound that you like creating?
Man, that's crazy, because I wasn't even really doing music in these places. At least California was the end. So I would say, honestly, living in Nassau, I lived in Nassau for a time, Bahamas, because my adopted family's Bahamian, so we have a lot of family out in the islands. But it really was out there that I started to really play around with music and start to collect sounds. And, my family lived all over different places like Brazil and took trips to El Salvador, and like we really were not in America for a lot of the time. So for me,
I think it's mainly the places that have inspired the music. Being able to give imagery from different areas of the world, and even some languages. Like I have a song called Stone Pine where I speak some Italian, because I was in Rome last year, things like that. So it's like those places, the people, the languages I can learn. Like I went to Oaxaca, Mexico, and there's Zapotecan culture, and they taught me some of the words, and I want to input that into songs, and like it's just all part of it. So I don't think the music of places really inspires me, but the people, the land, the words that they share with me, that's what inspires all of it.
There isn't a renaissance of black folk music because there's always been black folk music. Have you found community also in other black people playing folk and Americana?
It's a great question, and I honestly, most places that I've played and even festivals, like I wouldn't say I'm really around actually a lot of black folk artists as of right now. So it's interesting. I'm hoping that at least they keep popping up in these places where I can meet them. I haven't really met too many of them in my area, but the truth is told that I think white people are now noticing that the culture was appropriated in many ways, because it comes from Africa. The banjo even is an African instrument taken to North Carolina with the slaves and taken, and then you have them exiled out of that experience, and now everyone knows it as just being strictly white. It's interesting because the industry really did a great job of making the African American community feel like rap was the only option, and also gaining money and things from that experience that isn't great, right?
Right.
So they use that as a way to, rappers are this, you're hard, or this, your guns, violence. Well, we can also use that to make them famous, but also make money and keep it this way, so that black people only go into this cycle of music, which then trains the next generations of I got to do rap and be hard. And then you get into that, and then those kids go to jail, and then the labels don't care. They'll find another person to fill that spot. It's an endless cycle. Mm-hmm. There's other ways you can go in music. Rap is a beautiful thing. I love rap, but there is also beautiful black people that sing peaceful tunes with a banjo or a guitar, or I guess a ukulele. That's what I use.
Or even angry songs with guitar, which is what I do.
That's what I'm saying. The guitar is not a strictly white.
But I just think that it's cool that everyone else is realizing what we've known for ages.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So. It's not new to me. I'm it's how it's been. But thanks for now.
Your kindness can be hard.
Yeah, you still can be,
yeah,
strong, and kindness is strength.
Yeah.
It takes you already know.
Well, Mon Rovia, thank you so much for spending some time with me.
Well, thank you for wanting to have my time.
Up next, some more ways music is transforming community. We'll talk with Michi Wiancko, director and curator of Antenna Cloud Farm in Gill, about their summer season that begins this weekend.
And hopefully we'll get to hear some music too. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NAPM.
Songs of freedom etched into your heart.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering co-op advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith. Antenna Cloud Farm is as much an idea as it is a place situated on a picturesque hilltop in Gill.
They are a nonprofit who describe themselves as an arts-centered ecosystem and cultural hub that focuses on presenting world-class, vision-based live programming in partnership with local organizations doing impactful work in realms of social, racial, food, and climate justice.
We are joined by the director and curator of Antenna Cloud Farm in Gill, Michi Wiancko. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we're here to talk about the opening days of your 2024 season. We were just hearing a little music by Patricia Santos, who is part of this opening. But tell us about, first of all, the founding of Antenna Cloud Farm. What brought you to this hill in Gill after working? Your CV was too long to list, all the
There's
accolades
too many things.
and orchestras you've worked with.
And again, I saw you at Big Ears, and it was hilarious because I went to see the Silk Road Ensemble at Mill and Mine and looked up with my friends I was there with, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know that person.
Oh my gosh.
And then I took a picture and I immediately texted it to Monty, and it just said, Michi's on stage. with Rhiannon Giddens.
Oh my
Yeah, who
goodness.
is now
Oh.
under the has the baton of the
Yes.
Silk Road Ensemble that
Yes.
Yo-Yo Ma founded. So these are the people that we're talking about.
That was a fantastic concert, by the way.
Oh,
I couldn't tell
thanks.
you because that would have been weird.
You could have literally screamed it out, and I would have been clean.
But why Gil and how?
We were drawn to Gill for so many reasons. We were initially drawn to Franklin County. And before moving here, I actually called a bunch of different cultural councils in different towns. And the people in the Gill Cultural Council, I asked them this question, like, how do you feel about music? And how would you feel about having an arts-based program here in Gill? And they were all so excited about it. And so I think just the feeling that Gill has, there's a lot of people doing really interesting things. There's amazing farming happening, art making, a lot of music going on. So it feels like it's the perfect place for us. And so what I wanted to start was a really holistic festival, meaning that everybody involved, from the artists to the staff to the audience and the collaborators and the sponsors, engaging in a really holistic way, like bringing their whole selves to the table. So not transactional, all about longevity and long-term relationships. We pamper our artists. We cook for them. We have volunteers who cook for them. We cook for our audiences sometimes. We curate the concerts so that they're aligned with the setting sun. We do all kinds of wild stuff.
I was there one time, and the sun set, and there were fireworks in Turner's Falls,
That's right.
and you were above the fireworks but could look down on them from Antenna Cloud Farm. It was really cool. Yeah.
I mean, having a music program, regardless, is really wonderful. But why make one of the tenets of Antenna Cloud Farm food justice?
I think that music has this opportunity to help us connect to where we are. We're so used to traveling all over the place, and I think in general feeling a little disembodied and disconnected from where our food comes from, where it's being grown, who's growing it, and we're seeing, the negative consequences of that. I think in the town of Gill, there is so much passion around, Franklin County and Western Massachusetts in general. This is kind of like food growing mecca. I think of it that way. And in Gill, our tiny little farming, right to farm community, there are just these incredible farms, like, many of whom are our sponsors, like Up and Gill Farm, Everyday Farm, and people who work closely with farmers like People's Pine to Real Pickles. These are all our long-term partners and food sponsors. And I think having an opportunity to bring artists in and have them just eat food that was grown within a couple miles of where we live, sometimes just like a mile, can be a really life-changing experience for them. We do a lot of work in the community. We work with youth, students, and talking to them about food has been really a really cool thing to kind of mix with like a musical workshop or a musical, just combining agriculture and art, I think is where it's at. And I feel like Western Massachusetts is the perfect place for that.
We're talking with Michi Wiancko from Antenna Cloud Farm in Gill. The opening session of the summer season is this Saturday, June 29th, at Antenna Cloud Farm's outdoor stage. Who's going to be there as the first performer this year?
This will be Majel Connery. We are so excited. She's just a next level singer, composer, songwriter. She's bringing this fabulous collaborator, Patricia Santos, who sings and plays cello at the same time in this really amazing way. And Majel will be bringing a song cycle that is sort of a love song to the earth and to the environment. And so we have timed her concert to be happening while the sun is setting behind her over the valley.
Amazing.
So we're very excited about that.
Yeah.
Full body musical experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the next day, to kick off the opening weekend.
Yes, the next day we are inviting Anju, who is actually a fellow of the Experimental Institute, a former fellow, which is an institute that takes place at Antenna Cloud Farm in August every year. We're going into our third season this year. And Anju is an incredible singer, songwriter, art maker, community builder, collaborator. They will be bringing two incredible, this is the thing, we have these like our headlining artists, and then they all bring their friends with them, and their friends are just like brilliant visionary geniuses. So there's so much icing on top of everything. But Anju will be bringing Devin Gates, who is an upright bass player, virtuoso upright bass player, and a vocalist. as well as Luciana Garcia, who is an amazing pianist. And so the three of them will be doing original work by Anju in our more intimate indoor setting, which does also have views of the valley and some lush greenery for extra inspiration as the concert backdrop.
Nice.
What happens when it rains?
Oh, we all freak out. No, I'm just kidding. Well,
That might just be trauma from this past weekend
right?
talking.
I know. I was thinking about you guys. I
Yeah.
was like, I hope they're staying.
2 shelters in place.
Yeah.
That's 2 more than ever has happened at the Green River for me.
Honestly, though, rain. Well, we've done all kinds of crazy things. We once moved a 200 audience concert to our indoor stage, which fits about 75, and we spread it out amongst several concerts. We were freaking out about it until this year, where we are now collaborating with the amazing Shea Theater, who are contributing their space as our potential rain location.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. Shea Theater in Turners Falls. We're so proud to be like living 5 minutes away from this amazing venue, which we have some scheming and dreaming happening for future collaborations.
Oh, even better.
Yes.
Well, I want to hear more about the Experimental Institute, which I have jokingly referred to as a laboratory. And we also want to hear some music from Michi Wiancko. But why don't we take a little break right here? More about Antenna Cloud Farm with Michi Wiancko, the director and curator, in just a little bit.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
So I don't get too jittery.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We're here with Michi Wiancko from Antenna Cloud Farm, whose 2024 season will begin in Gill this weekend. As we mentioned before, Michi is an incredible performer in her own right and has worked with all of the heavy hitters of the world of orchestral music and so many great orchestras.
And not orchestral music,
I know.
too.
Yes, you were going to be working with Wilco, maybe, or there were like at
Oh,
least a
we
little,
did a few years ago, yeah.
So that ties right in nicely.
Yeah, but like since we have such a renowned musician in the studio, we can't not just give them the floor to perform if they're open to it. Are you open to it?
I am.
Awesome, go for it.
Okay, should I say a couple things about what I'm going to do?
Please.
So I play on this 5-string violin sometimes. I also play on a standard 4-string classical violin instrument. But I've got this fun 5-string which has a low C string. And I do this for all kinds of stuff, playing with bands and composing and things like that. But it's unusual enough that there is sort of no repertoire. You'll probably get some callers calling in telling me I'm wrong. There is repertoire, and I would love to know about it. But there's no, there's not a lot of music that I have come across that's written for the 5-string. So what I have done, until I have time to compose a piece for myself, which I currently do not, I improvise. So I'm going to just improvise. Thank you.
Beautiful. So cool!
For the first and only time ever, an original piece by Michi Wiancko, who is the curator and director of Antenna Cloud Farm, improvising that on a 5-string violin.
But I have to say, this is the second time in this week that I've seen this 5-string violin. Kat from Twisted Pine was playing one both for her set with us and then at the Square Dance at the end. And I was looking at it from upstairs and going, wait a minute, are there 5 strings on that violin?
Yeah, well, you got to get you guys together. They're from Boston, too.
Amazing.
But what's interesting is you at Antenna Cloud Farm and the Experimental Institute work with all these virtuosic musicians that have been classically trained by and large, Juilliard, the big name schools, but get them to improvise just like that.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Because that is not usually part of the training. When in the rock genre and jazz genres and all these other genres, improvising is a huge part of it.
Yeah. If you want to instill just immediate fear in a classically trained musician who has been pretty straight down the classical path, take their music away and ask them to make something up on their instrument, and it's scary.
Which is
scary.
It's amazing because, as we mentioned, you have done so many highly decorated things, but your husband, Judd, has as well, and you just told us
you had never really played together.
You never improvised
We've
together.
never we have played together.
Right.
We actually used to have a little husband-wife duo called Sounding Weights. That didn't last long just because we got really, really busy with our respective projects. But the other night, for fun, we had some friends over. He got on the piano, I brought out my 5-string, and we were like, this could literally be a disaster. This could be just not pretty. But luckily, turns out we have a very similar musical language, and it was great.
It's amazing that a couple that's been married and doing this for so long hasn't had that experience before. It's wonderful, actually. I think it's great.
Sometimes you forget that you haven't done it.
I actually, honestly, Judd, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how good of an improviser. I didn't realize he could actually improvise on piano.
Yeah.
I knew he could do a little. I didn't know he could kind of go deep with it. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yay.
Well, we hopefully Judd will join us
Yeah.
next time. I
Great.
will publicly apologize to you, Judd. I always just email Michi, but I always assume that she's.
Oh no, he's home watching the kids. No, he'll come in in anytime.
Bring them too.
Yeah.
It's all part of the fun family that's at Antenna Cloud Farm on a hill in Gill. And this Saturday is the opening of the 2024 summer season with Majel Connery, Sunday, Anju, and then stuff happening Friday, July 5th in downtown Turner's at Unnameable Books with Wilder Ayers, who's been on this show. And there's stuff going to be happening with Kimaya Diggs on July 6th and Friction Quartet on July 7th.
And then a whole institute happening leading up to my birthday, which is exciting.
Can we come visit the institute like I
Yes,
did that one time and
of
meet
course.
some of the musicians?
Open invitation, yeah, for sure.
Michi Wiancko, the director and curator of Antenna Cloud Farm. And Gil, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Wednesday on the Fabulous 413, friend of the show, famous minor television personality John Hodgman. We'll hear about his work curating the Solid Sound Festival, which will be at this weekend, and where and when he and his Judge John Hodgman podcast will be taping live here in the 413.
And we welcome back local author and illustrator Tony DiTerlizzi, who has another TV series headed our way. After the success of the Roku show, The Spiderwick Chronicles, we'll chat with him about his new series, Wandla, just before its premiere on Apple Plus TV.
And the Word Nerd returns, which will be fun.
It will make the show funner.
It will make the show the funnest. Are we allowed to say those?
Funner and funnest?
Yeah.
We'll find out tomorrow. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.